As they all sat down, Sophie was still in a sour mood after Jacob introduced her as a friend. She was already annoyed at how close he and Kathy were sitting. She had skipped school and had come here to support Jacob for his race, but he didn't seem to want her there. "I can leave if you want. I don't want to be a problem." She bit her lip as it hurt to say that. Jacob was a little surprised by this. In his awkwardness, he had overlooked the fact that she had come all this way for him. He understood how it must have looked when she saw him being so friendly to Kathy. He felt guilty now. No, you should stay," he said quickly and gave her a warm smile. Sophie smiled back and sat back comfortably. "Yes, you should stay and cheer for your friend," Kathy, who had overheard Sophie, chimed in but had a sarcastic tone. She had really stressed on the word friend. It was clear that she was uncomfortable with Sophie being there. Before Sophie arrived, she and Jacob were having a good time, and she was hoping to get closer to him today. Jacob rubbed his forehead temples as his head started to hurt, and also because he couldn't express his awkwardness. He heard the displeasure in Kathy's tone, who had been extra sweet to him all day, and he was already off his game ever since Sophie dropped in unannounced. "I'm thirsty. Could you go and get me something to drink?" Sophie ignored Kathy's little comment and changed the topic. "I'll give you money. You can go buy something that you like." Jacob did not want to leave the girls alone. He was afraid they might chew each other's heads off. Besides, if Sophie left for a few minutes, it would also give him some time to calm his nerves and maybe talk to Kathy and calm her down. "I don't know your campus well. What if I get lost?" Sophie asked, trying to get him to go so she could find out more about Kathy. "How did you find this place, then?" Jacob wasn't buying the whole innocent act. "A large sports arena is not that hard to find, but getting to the stands where your class is sitting took me a while. I literally had to ask every other person to be able to find you." She made it sound like a tedious chore. "She's right. You won't be able to find the corner store. You should buy it for her," said Kathy. As much as he wanted to argue, Sophie did come here just for him, and this was the least he could do. So Jacob agreed and left the spectator stand and walked outside the sports field to buy the drinks. As soon as Jacob disappeared around the corner, Sophie decided not to waste any time. She turned her attention to Kathy and asked her directly, "Are you his girlfriend?" Her expressions held barely concealed envy, and her tone was demanding. She needed to know the answer. Kathy looked at her awkwardly, as she didn't expect this direct question. She fumbled around a little, not actually saying anything. She wasn't Jacob's girlfriend, but something told her that admitting it out loud would be a defeat. In that moment of silence, Kathy observed the girl closely. She was in an ordinary school uniform that somehow made her look prettier than it should have. She was younger than him by a couple of years, but her demeanor was demanding, and she couldn't comprehend why she felt threatened by a high schooler. When Sophie saw her dumbfounded expression, she continued talking. "I saw you both together. The way you guys were talking with your heads together, and you handing him that bottle of water." Sophie trailed off as she felt upset. "Oh, about that." Kathy was relieved. "He's just like you. He didn't bring anything to drink, so I gave him a bottle of water. That was it." "So you're not his girlfriend?" Sophie tilted her head and looked at Kathy, double-checking as if she was challenging her to say yes. Kathy couldn't say the word no, so she just shook her head to answer Sophie. "It's good he's not your boyfriend. He's completely useless." Sophie attempted to joke once she got her answer. Kathy just smiled back at her and didn't comment. But as soon as Sophie gave her the satisfied nod, she decided that it was her turn to snoop now. "So, how long have you known Jacob? I mean, you seem to be good friends, right?" Kathy didn't want to be direct, but she wanted to know the deal with Sophie and Jacob. "Do you want to hear the truth or the lie?" Sophie decided to have some fun with her now that she was feeling better. "Truth, of course." Even when she added the words "of course," Kathy's tone sounded hesitant. She wasn't sure if she would like hearing the truth. "The truth is—" Sophie paused for a bit on purpose to prolong the suspense, and with it, Kathy's restlessness. After a few seconds, she said, "I'm his fiancée." "What?" Kathy's mouth opened wide, and she nearly stumbled and fell on the spectator stand. Seconds later, Jacob returned with 4 bottles of water. He handed a bottle of water to Sophie, kept one for himself, and gave 2 to Kathy. "Thanks for sharing the water earlier. I thought you might like a refill," he said to Kathy and smiled at her. It made her feel a bit at ease. Some of Jacob's classmates, who were obviously snooping on the 3 of them, spoke up. "Is this your friend, Jacob? Why don't you introduce her to us?" They were teasing Jacob, and he rolled his eyes. He was about to open his mouth and tell them off, but he stopped as Sophie turned around to face them. He expected her to get irritated and tell them off herself, but instead, she gave them her brightest smile and said, "Hi, I'm Sophie. It's nice to meet you all. Do you guys have any snacks on you? I'm rather hungry." The boys were stunned when the girl spoke to them directly. She was rather pretty, and they didn't expect her to give them any attention. They immediately gave her their unopened packets of chips, cookies, and beef jerky. "Thank you, guys." She still had a bright smile on her face, making the guys give her all their attention. She then turned around to face the field and ate her snacks as if it was no big deal. She completely ignored Jacob, who was sitting next to her with his mouth wide open. He could have never imagined Sophie flirting with his classmates and felt a bit annoyed. But he let it go, considering the situation he was in at the moment. Kathy, on the other hand, didn't pay attention to this scene, as she was still hung up on the fiancé situation that Sophie had mentioned. She didn't believe that Sophie was Jacob's fiancé. Instead, she thought that Sophie was simply lying to get under her skin. However, she did hear some rumors of Jacob's engagement when the limousine had come to pick up Jacob. It made her rethink Sophie's comments. But even if that was true, Sophie was a bit young to be someone's fiancé. Could it be that Jacob is engaged to be married to Sophie's elder sister? If that's the case, no wonder Jacob couldn't do anything about her and had to treat her nicely like a friend. Kathy analyzed the situation. Even though it troubled her to think that Jacob was committed, it was the only plausible explanation. If this high school girl is so pretty, her sister must be even prettier, she thought, and bit her lip. She was jealous, confused, and a bit heartbroken. Kathy watched the games, but her heart wasn't in it. She was lost in her thoughts and kept to herself for a while. Meanwhile, interesting matches of high jump, long jump, shot put, and relay races were going on. The large screen constantly declared the scores and updated the winners at the end of each game. Sophie watched for a while, but got bored and turned to Jacob. "When will it be your turn?" "My race is in the afternoon. It's the 1,500-meter race," Jacob answered proudly. "Just one?" Sophie's eyes were wide open. "Oh, I didn't know that the criteria of being your husband was to be able to compete in a decathlon," he whispered to her sarcastically. He knew that she was just teasing him, so he rolled his eyes at her before turning his attention to the field. "Well then, you better win. What's the point of coming all the way here to see you if you don't win the race?" Sophie continued to mock him, not realizing that she had just admitted out loud that she was there just for him. Jacob looked at her as a smile slowly grew on his face. Even though he already knew it, hearing her say that she had come there to see him run had made him feel happy. His confidence grew, and he began looking forward to the race.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.